Welcome to the Hudson Horror Show.
How did everybody think of, how did everybody enjoy Madman? Awesome. You guys are a great audience. I'm going to turn over to Gary and the cast of Madman. And
so we're so happy to have you here, and we really appreciate you being here. Along with Christopher Lee, we want to take just a moment to give him some respect. We need a little bit of respect for the late director Joe Giannone, who made this picture with me, my buddy, my partner, my good friend. We spent like 2 years literally in the same house, in the same moment, in the same pair of shoes half the time. So he really did a good job. He passed away a few years ago. We always pay some respect to him. We lost Frederick Newman, who was called Carl Fredericks in the movie. He played Max. He was actually a very famous actor in a theater troupe called Marz. He was a good friend of Samuel Beckett, and if anybody's into theater, you know what that means. It's a pretty venerable position to be in. Yeah. And also, we lost Tony Fish. Smells like this. Who was a good friend of ours from college, a great guy, and he had passed away a few years ago. And I think that covers the memorial stuff, right?
Yes, so, man.
The rest of us are still here. We're hanging on.
Barely.
So, again, I give you, we have Michael Sullivan here, who's played Dippy. He's fresh off the set of something with, down in Australia. I think he was doing the, something with Schmog or something like that.
No, I did a Hitler movie.
Oh, Hitler movie. Right, that's right. You get killed on the second page, though, right?
Yeah.
Oh, just
It's my job.
Yeah. And here we have Mr. Tom Candela, a.k.a. Jimmy Steele, also known as Richie the Brat. If not for him, what's going to happen here? We wouldn't have a movie there. We couldn't get him out of his lair. So that was great. And then, of course, the man himself, Mr. Paul Ehlers. Hi, Ed. Anyway, so, are there any questions? Oh, God, hands all over the place, sir.
So, was it as much fun to film the hot tub scene as it was to look at it? That was the most awkward lovemaking scene.
It has grown over the years. I think it was, you know...
Close set.
I think it must have been the ex. It really was, I was dizzy. No, it was fun. And also, I want you to understand, that hot tub was not just used for on-camera work. The entire company used that hot tub at one point or another. Okay, we burned a lot of spleefs in there. People snuck in there at different hours of the day and night, and well, the day, because at night we were shooting. We were shooting every day, every night, from dusk till dawn. It was it went on. We were supposed to do 4 weeks. We ended up doing 6 weeks. And it just kept getting colder and colder, and the leaves kept falling off, and we kept painting whatever we could around us. Everybody had a can of green spray paint in their pocket, and if there was a brown leaf in the background, they'd spray it. Or we sent them in deep into the woods with
gluing them back on.
Gluing them back on, so we dealt with that. Another question. Sir?
Two questions related to the character of Betsy. One is, were you trying to subvert final girl cliches by giving her the big sex scene? And secondly, why did Galen Ross take a pseudonym on the film?
That answer is very simple. Galen Ross took a pseudonym because she was a SAG actress and we were non-SAG. So she didn't want to get into issues with SAG.
As did I.
As did he. He was also.
What's his name? French Carl.
Right. And Frederick Newman, who was called Carl Fredericks in the movie, he took a pseudonym also. And literally, he left the set, went right to a plane, and flew right to Paris to work on something with Samuel Beckett. We were very lucky to get him. He was a friend of Tony Fish. And Tony Fish was called Tony Fish because he was a master of fish picking. He used to go down to the Fulton Fish Market in Manhattan, and he would pick fish up, and he started to get known by all the downtown restaurants, and all the best chefs started to ask him to go get their fish because he knew what he was doing. He lived in the Caribbean for a bunch of years, and he developed a real understanding of fish. I can't answer it for Harriet Bass, though. I don't know what she knew about fish. So, any other questions?
Also about the character, I was curious about, because the final girl usually is the one who is chaste and doesn't sleep with anybody, and in this one, she of course has the memorable hot tub scene.
That's true. And she gets hooked. Hence the hook. It was just the way we played it. I mean, there were other things we were dealing with at the time. There was a big, a lot of pictures coming out doing a lot of woman stalking based on more prurient interests and things like that, and a lot of sexually oriented stuff. And we were trying to avoid that and make her just a normal person, who just doesn't survive this night. No, nothing else about that. Now in the remake, which we're trying to get off the ground, and all of you can help anytime you want by just passing the word, the character of Betsy is a little bit different. She's a little bit more empowered, but she's a scaredy cat, and she has to go through some changes to deal with the movie. So that's something to keep in mind. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll give it to him and he'll just talk to you.
Yeah, I actually have two questions.
Yeah.
One was, why was there never a Madman sequel?
Mm-hmm.
And two, Richie starts this whole thing, so you're expecting him to get the most gruesome death, and then he actually makes it out alive. Well, how did that happen?
That's called irony. The other thing is, though, and in that vein, you think about it, if I mention the word, you'll all just kind of choke. Ellie? Is there anybody more syrupy, sweet, like maple syrup this girl's voice was? And who gets the worst death, and twice? First she gets an axe in the chest, and then she gets her head blown off. And she was like that in real life. She was a real sweetheart. She used to bake cookies for everybody. And if I remember correctly, the story, and he can tell it a little bit, Paul came on, and the poster that's out in the hall is the original poster that he had designed. He came on as an art director, poster designer, and he also was a master, genre master. He really knew the genre, he loved the genre. He was a designer of knives, he was a martial artist. We went through a lot of trouble trying to cast a Madman, and all of a sudden we wake up one day, I'm looking at the late director Joey and saying, we've got everybody, we don't have Madman. Who's going to be Madman? Because all these guys came in, they were all 6'8", they were huge, they were bulky, nobody could move, nobody had any heart, any soul. And then we looked at each other one day and said, what about Paul? He's 6'4". At the time, and now, and that was it. He literally came in his pants, and he was very happy to do it.
It was a great moment.
Yeah, it was a great moment. It was one of those moments, sort of great. What did it feel like to you at the time? How did you feel about that?
Fabulous. It's just something that I used to dream about doing.
Right.
Okay, and it was tried my best. I used to go home into my little cabin, and my friend made me a cassette of Carpenter's theme from Halloween, and I used to listen to Halloween and try to get myself going. Yeah, it's true. I really did.
Yes, but you held no candle to the method actor of method actors on the set. Would you tell them what you did for your scenes?
Well, these scenes when I was lost in the woods, required a certain amount of fatigue and myself looking kind of disheveled. So literally while they were filming other scenes, getting ready for mine, I spent 4 or 5 hours basically just walking in a circle through the woods and trying to get myself into the coming scene that was about to happen. That scene was actually cut from the movie, and after all of that, my big scene, and it was a scene where Betsy actually finds me in the woods, and I direct her to the house, saying, "This is what I found." And of course, I was supposed to be crying, and I was supposed to be, out of it. And I worked up all of this energy doing that, and we shot it several times. Unfortunately, my ability to maintain that level kept going down and down and down. I think that's why they finally cut the scene. It's because they didn't match. But I was out in the woods walking circles for hours upon hours, trying to get myself into that scene and prepared for it.
Yep.
Yeah.
There were ruts in the dirt.
There were. No, I really did wear up.
Marlon was proud, though. Marlon Brando was very
And
proud of
Al,
him.
and Al.
And Al Pacino was very proud of him. And this man here, he came up to be our resident drunk.
Dippy, it's empty.
And Michael has been in many things. I don't know if have any of you guys seen Greaser's Palace? Or is that too before everybody's time?
I mean, I've seen it. but-
It's Robert Downey's dad.
Yep.
Directed a movie called Greaser's Palace. It's worth digging up. It was pretty freaking weird. And Michael has a very big role in it. What else have you done lately, sir? Other than getting killed by Hitler?
I forgot.
Oh, okay. Took out your frontal lobe while they were at it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Now, Hitler's Folly is a Bill Clinton movie I did a couple months ago. And, you know, it's like in this movie, the whole purpose of me being there is just to get killed.
Right, you're too
In
old.
Greaser's Palace, I got killed 4 times in the same movie. And the year I graduated high school, I worked at the Great Lakes Shakespeare Festival, and I got killed, depending on the rotation of shows, I got killed 6 or 7 times a week. Richard III, and Henry VI. And I got, because I'm only 5 feet high, I doubled for decapitation gags because I was a head shorter than some of the actors that got their heads chopped off.
There you go. Michael is also a world-class prop maker and animator. And he's got some interesting things on YouTube. Is it called Mike's Robots?
No. I worked at Peter Wallach's animation studio for 30 years and I art directed, photographed, painted, built props and costumes and never animated anything. So when I got finished there, I got a Mitchell camera and animated stop motion robot porno movie. The Sex Life of Robots.
Sex Life for Robots. So you can all rush to your computers when you get home.
It was on YouTube, but they threw it off after it had been there about a year. But it's on, I think, cloudeyes.com, and there's a robomike.com that has,
Look that up.
Netflix?
oh, I don't.
No, you don't want to see that on Netflix. But anyway, he's a very talented
And it's on
man.
display in the Sex Museum in New York City.
Oh, so next time you're down there, it's quite interesting. He builds every robot himself. Is it from Barbie dolls?
Yeah,
Got it.
robots are, the cheap way to have lots of armatures is Barbie dolls and G.I. Joes.
It's a total subversion of Barbie dolls. A total subversion.
And, you know, I made a lot of animation characters out of steel with, you know, clamp joints and ball socket joints, and it took about a month to do, whereas a G.I. Joe robot takes about a week to do.
But there's a lot of them. You'll find it very interesting if you see it. You'll maybe get some ideas.
Yeah, on the robomike.com website, there's pictures of my loft and displaying how I live like a hoarder. Robots and props.
He kids you not. He kids you not. Anyway, one quick question of other. How many people here are on Facebook with us? Put your hand up if you're on Facebook with us. Oh, that's not enough.
No.
So, Madman Marz movie on Facebook. We love to see you there. We talk with the fans all the time. We trade shit. We do all kinds of stuff. You can talk dirty there. It's okay. So, anything else? Any questions? Any more questions? We had a great time making the movie. When we pulled our socks up in the morning to go to set, or in the afternoon actually, we never thought we'd be standing here 35 years later talking about it. So it's really amazing. It had a working title of The Legend Lives because it was really based on the Cropsey legend, which people up here probably know about. And then when we were going to do it, if you know some of the history of it, we found out that somebody else was shooting something that was so similar to it, we had to get our hands on the script to see if it was us. And it turned out that it was The Burning, shooting almost at the same time. So we changed it around and rejiggered it so it would be what it is. But it really is, I got all of it from my life as a camper in Catskill Mountain summer camps. So it came from there, all these things. Did you have a question, sir?
Yeah, were you guys filming at a functioning camp? Like that during night or?
No, we ended up filming at a place. We were going to film upstate, but by the time we got the money and get everything rolling, it was like late August. And by the time we got through pre-production, we expected we'd be up in like October. And we were thinking, oh God, if we're going to shoot nights, it's going to get cold. So we started looking for something else. And we found something out in West Hampton, Long Island, a place called Fish Cove Inn. And it was a really interesting place. It was perfect for us. It had the big house. It had all the little cabins. It had a little lake there. It was just perfect for a low-budget picture. I mean, the way you make a low-budget picture, you try to keep it to one location.
You should tell them the story.
Tell them the
Do
story.
you know about my son's birth, anybody? I gotta tell you this.
No, it's worthy of
It's worth hearing. My wife was pregnant, and she was due about the time that we were filming. She was due actually in November. And, you know, she was great. She said, you know, go do the movie. And we did. And Gary got me an old-fashioned doctor's beeper.
It was cutting edge in those days.
It was cutting edge. So I had that kind of stuck in the overalls, man. And sure as shooting, maybe the scene where I'm walking at the camera with the axe.
Yeah, that's the one.
Beep, 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 thing goes off. And everybody scrambles because we knew it was going to happen. And I had to make it into Suffolk County and then into Nassau County to North Shore Hospital. And at the time, I was looking for Joe Hansen, who did the makeup, and everybody's kind of helping me get, you know, the makeup off. And we didn't get all of it off. And there was blood and there was latex left, and the coveralls were all fucked up. And, you know, so I run to, which I don't run anymore, but I run in the movie, and it's hilarious.
Call that running.
I call that, but that's the best I can do, man. That's why I kill people. I can't run away. So I get in the car and I do like 85 miles an hour to North Shore Hospital, and I realize I'm looking in the mirror and I still have blood on me and all kinds of stuff. So I jump out of the car and I go to the entrance, and I see this guy staring at me, and I go, excuse me. I said, where's maternity? The guy says, oh man, you want emergency, man, it's around the side. It really happened, it really happened. And I tell people afterwards that the show Amazing Stories had an episode called Mummy Daddy, about a guy who was wrapped up as a mummy and his beeper went off and his child was being born. Someone must have heard our story. Really, I think that's where it came from. But it's very cool. And that's my son, Jonathan Ehlers, who is an up-and-coming director in Hollywood. Yep. One last thing, I got to give a plug.
Go plug.
I'm going to plug. My friend Christopher Garatano just completed a film called Montauk Chronicles, which is allegedly the story of disappearances of young boys out in Camp Hero in Montauk, Long Island. And according to the people who worked there, over 2,000 children were taken and experimented on. And he wanted me to play the lead guy who does this to them. So I play a guy named Jack Pruitt, but I don't do any roar. It's actual dialogue. And you know, my best friend looked at it and he said, you do Sinister really well, man. But it's you should look for that. It's going to be out. Montauk Chronicles. So that's something current I did. Let me give this back to Gary.
Alrighty then.
Thanks, guys.
How was our time? Sorry, keep clapping. It's okay. I'm looking. Oh, is there somebody with a question? Yeah, a hand up there. I'm ready.
You did answer why you didn't do a sequel.
Oh, right, the sequel thing. Well, a couple of things happened. By the time we went out to make the movie, we were trying to chase the void that was on the shelves of most of the majors at the time. Halloween was one thing, and that was an aberration. It was a low-budget, independent movie, brilliantly made by John Carpenter in every way. And but Compass International released that. It wasn't the major yet. When Friday the 13th released, Paramount released it, and that was a big change. It did $60 million at the box office before anybody knew what happened. And every major studio, sheep that they are, said, wait, where's ours? And they all had open shelves with no horror. So anything that came in the door with blood on it, they were buying for big money. So all the filmmakers in the day there were suddenly cranking out horror films to try to make it out there to get them sold. And if you studied the period, many of you didn't live that period, it was early 80s, it was like every week after a point. 2 or 3 were coming out, and it was like one after another. So when we started making Madman in October of '80, by the time we got out to there were 15 movies in production that we could find. By the time we got out to the American film market, there were 135 movies up for it. So it was really crazy, and it shifted the supply and demand game and all that kind of stuff. Meanwhile, the saturation was starting to happen, and the audience was getting a little tired of it, and they weren't doing the same kind of business. Now, in terms of the sequel, by the time they got us out there, and we were released regionally. We went out not in one big thing. They took us out area by area, and they were really smart early day saturation marketers. So if we went into an area, we covered everything in a 15, 20-mile radius. We were in every theater that they had. We were on every radio station, everything, and it made a lot of noise. We got a lot of fans. We jammed the box office. They'd shut the ads down the day we opened. As soon as the box office dropped a certain amount, they'd move to the next area, and they went around the country like that, and we got big notoriety. We hit top 10 on Variety's top 50. Everything was looking great. But then when we got out into VHS distribution, and around then is where you would have had the sequel come up, Thorn EMI was handling it, and they tanked. Jensen Farley Pictures, that was handling Madman, tanked. And the audiences had saturated on seeing the remakes and the sequel back in the day. A couple of them got out for Friday the 13th, and something got out for Halloween. But the amount of desire in the marketplace had started to shift, and they were looking for different genres. Right now, actually, and I'll tell you, I am working on, they're written. The reimagining reboot is written. There's a sequel to that written. There's even a prequel written. But now it's a question of how do we get the funding? And that's always an issue. Things have changed since the day when we made that. Why, somebody have money?
I put my hand out.
Okay. You never know who's in the audience. No, these days, when we made this, you could break a picture with no stars in it because it had good horror, good suspense. That was the beauty of it, actually. That's what we were able to sell to an investor in the end was, we don't need big stars, and we're gonna go out, and we're gonna make a Chevy for 1/20th the cost that GM makes it, but we're gonna end up putting it in the same showroom as them, and we'll recoup our money that much quicker. So we were trying to do that. Compared to Hollywood, we were making a movie for 1/20th of what they would spend on it, and then we go out and try to compete, which is exactly what we were able to do. The only thing we weren't able to control was the third parties. And on my 30th birthday, we began principal photography, and on my 33rd birthday, I'm sitting in a bankruptcy meeting with all of these big time dudes, spot buying companies, Movie Lab, and $2 million here and $1 million there. We were in a hole like $12 million at that point. And our 600 grand that was supposed to come to us, I went sailing out the window like the cartoons used to have with a money bag and wings. So the sequel, we just couldn't catch the timing for it. The timing is right now. I believe that right now we've had our share of, there's been plenty of vampires and plenty of zombies and plenty of paranormals, and actual slasher of the era, of the style that it is, I can't count too many. There have been a few, but they don't really get to the big screen. They go straight to DVD most of the time. So I've been working on trying to get the sequel off the ground, and unfortunately, or fortunately, I have to cast it with somebody that's known. They're very, the distributors and the people with the money are very difficult now. They all want names of some kind to get these shows to work. So it's made it a little bit harder. But along those lines, I don't know, let's do a poll. I'm thinking of, and I'm in discussions with Sarah Hyland. Anybody know Sarah Hyland? Think Modern Family. She's the older teenage daughter. Okay, so I'm talking to her people about bringing her in to play the new Betsy. And I've also been, and this, this will get out no matter what I say, so what, we'll find out. I've been hawking Quentin to play Max. Okay. Quentin loves the movie. He's screened it at the New Beverly in LA. He owns his own print. He used to put us up in the midnight shows when he was doing in San Antonio with Rodriguez and everything. And so he's a little busy now on Hateful Eight, but I have been bugging him nonetheless. I sent him a birthday card with a begging message, and I'm trying to get to him and see if I can get him. I can shoot him out in a day if I have to. But it would be great. Would it be great if Quentin played Max and told him? I'm sure I'll get in a lot of trouble for this, but that's all right. That's the way it goes. And also, I also have other people that I've been trying to reach just to get somebody that, again, that the studios or the investors will buy into that. So in terms of why, it's the long-winded answer, why the sequel hasn't been made. It's not because we don't want to. It's because it's just difficult to do, along those lines. Any other questions? A man with a question. For him first.
Yeah,
and then
two
you.
quick questions. Was there any kind of backstory how the axe got in the stump? And was there a version of the script where Max came back at the end?
Well, Max does come back in the end.
Oh, he does?
Yeah, you see him on the, were you sleeping? No, I do all the time in movies. My wife elbows me all the time, I sleep. I miss very important moments. He comes back in the end and Richie meets him on the road.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, so there's that. There were some different things. We were going to go in and shoot Max playing cards with Father so-and-so or something like that, but we cut some of that shoe leather out, and we just went with the idea that it was, the cavalry's out there. There's the idea of that, but he just doesn't get back in time. I mean, the remake is insane, though. It's far more crazy with the things that happen in it, and same idea. It's like, I call it a 10 Little Indians format. I don't know if you know that old Agatha Christie thing, you get knocked off one at a time. In this instance, the tension comes because we, the audience, know the shit's going down, but the actors in the movie don't. So we're watching and worried that something's going to come out and bite them when we're not looking. I won't tell you. Other question? You had a question?
Yeah.
Go.
First part of my question is actually for the audience. Has anyone seen Madman in the theater when it first came out? Is that it? I was 8. So
you saw it in the theater at 8?
I was 8 years old.
Bless you.
Yeah,
Bless
my
you,
sister
man.
brought me. No, she brought me. No one cared. It was
Who brought
great.
you?
My sister.
Oh,
Yeah, big
Thank
sister.
God for all the sisters.
And so I told all my friends the story. They all thought I was making it up. And the damn song always stayed with me. And I think it's amazing. Is there any plan to release a soundtrack?
Yes, the vinyl original soundtrack of Madman for the first time that's coming out around October.
Nice.
With the song, which I wrote. So I'm happy
Yes.
to have it.
Yeah, that's
It's turned into, let's get a great cover band on it,
Yeah, we're thinking about it, actually.
No, I'm pretty excited about that. It's going to come out on vinyl, also on disc, but the vinyl part of it is great. And we've designed a really rockin' cover. Would you kind of tell them about the cover?
Yeah.
Okay. We designed what's called a gatefold cover. When you open it up, it's a big axe.
The axe.
So that's what's happening there. I'll feel better once I finally sign this deal. It's just been stringing along, but it's going to happen. It's all good. Any other questions? A man with a question.
Would you ever consider crowdfunding the reimagining?
I've thought about it. I just don't know that I can. I can't do it for the low money I did. It's a couple of $1 million. I don't know if I get the stars that I'm talking about. Yeah, no problem. Then I can get it funded by the studios probably. But I could crowdfund it then if I got really somebody of note. If I did it without stars, you think I could get crowdfunding to get a couple $1 million? I mean, it's a crowded field out there now. I mean, these days a couple $1 million is just about what it cost to make it back then. I mean, consider we made it for a little under 400,000 now. So it's 35 years later. Just look at it's probably close to the same numbers. So it's hard to tell.
I want to say to you guys that when I did the film, and I was a lifelong horror fan, and I was 30 when I did the movie, and when it finished up,
me too.
Hey, right.
We were young men.
I showed it, went to theaters with my friends who were also 30, and I really wanted to know their opinion about it, and it was very hard to get an honest opinion. Guys would go, hey, it's not the worst, but it's not the best, and I couldn't get a real sense of it, and I would have given anything to be 7, 8 years old, sitting in a theater like I did with Curse of Frankenstein when I was a little boy, and see if this movie has fear involved. It wasn't until I got talked into doing a convention in 2007, and people that showed up were guys and girls in their 30s, and they came up to me, and I thought it wasn't scary. People said, you scared the living shit out of me when I was a kid. And it was such a boost for me, because I wanted to know if the movie was scary at all. But with little kids, it was scary. So I felt that it all worked. You know, I want to thank you people, man, all of you guys, man. We wouldn't, as Gary said, we would not be here without everybody. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Now that brings up a good question. It's got its share of cheese, we know. I mean, but it wouldn't be an 80s horror film if it didn't have cheese in it. So, is it still scary in any places? Or is it still like, is it past the point where it can do it to you guys at this point? Do you have to be 7 or 8? You could be honest, I don't care, I'm thick-skinned.
There has some very good suspense in it. You may know something's gonna happen, but not exactly when.
Oh, okay.
You got a little music going on in the background, you know.
Yeah.
What's your favorite jumper? I have 2 favorite jumpers. But
You know, I actually, towards the end with Betsy, when he was in the back of the room going across.
Oh,
I
okay,
really
that's
enjoyed
more
that.
of a...
And it's funny because throughout the movie, we kept on talking about you being a ninja, and then we find out that you're into karate, so you know.
Yeah, he tried it.
I used to relax, except for one
Yeah, a couple
scene where Dave, is holding up the lantern, and he brings it down, he brings it up again. There's behind him a fiberglass axe that raises up.
It looks kind of funky.
Which I have still. But for the scenes, I talked to Joey, the director. We didn't have a lot of money. I used to relax. And Joey said, how close can you get to people? I said, close. You know, so the actors are thinking I have this like rubber axe or some shit. And, you know, yeah, that was kind of cool. And plus I had a mask. You know, I lose my right eye in the mask. I really get to the set and I find out I need like contacts. And so that wasn't good either, so I really couldn't see. So a lot of it was sensing areas around me and darkness, and we got very lucky. It could have been, you know, a snuff movie. Which
I was a nervous producer when these things went down. So back to the jumper thing. Does anybody, I mean, the tension is one thing and you're being, but there's just natural response to things will make you jump regardless of whether or not you're an adult.
The girls, I forget the character's name. I'm sorry. The one who gets decapitated with the car hood.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Yes,
When she first goes to open the car hood and you see Madman, behind that, that actually got me. Just now, this is the first time I've seen the movie, and it's like, and it actually got me a little. I was like, whoa. But I'd also just like to ask you a real quick question while we're on the subject about the jumpers and the tension and the atmosphere. I was really impressed with the use of sound in this movie. Like, especially like, well, and you know, it was really effective. Like, you just had like a lot of that wind sound in the back, and I'm sure it was kind of. And what I want to know is that a conscious choice to like, you know, heighten it, or was it just a happy accident of like, well, there's too much ambient noise in the background that we gotta like smooth out.
I'm definitely a fan of happy accidents in movies, and there are happy accidents, and they sometimes happen really more on the set when you're in motion in real shooting. Anything else in post-production is rarely a happy accident. It's all planned, every little thing. I mean, the sound of TP's neck breaking. Okay, I used to live in Hell's Kitchen then, and it was a great butcher shop on that block. And we went there one day to do the sound effects, and we just had a ball that afternoon. I came back with racks of bones and stuff like that. And we came back with a big-ass watermelon or two that we were using for knife stabs. And we just spent the afternoon just breaking shit up and killing people.
You guys should know that Vinegar Syndrome's Blu-ray release doesn't look anything like this. It's back to the original tones, the original sharpness, I thought, and the blue, the night scenes. It's very eerie. It does not look as Kodachrome-y as this became.
Well, this is faded now.
This is like after
the blue's
35
faded.
years.
Very blue tone to it.
Yeah, the Blu-ray, man, it's gorgeous. It's like we just shot it.
Yeah, we transferred
really
from the original negative here, and that's one of the reasons it took so long to get a Blu-ray out. I did the DVD 30-year anniversary in 2010 with Code Red, and then everybody was begging for the Blu-ray, and I don't want to do a Blu-ray until I can do it right, and I knew the only way to do it right was to transfer from the original negative via a laser scan. And so when they got their hands on it, I mean, Vinegar Syndrome is all about restoring 60s, 70s, 80s genre pictures that were shot on film so that it can be enjoyed by new audiences for a long time to come, including great porn. But they took 10 days. We scanned 127,000 frames approximately of the movie, one at a time. And then we took it into the color room and we went through and we color corrected all of the things. Ryan Emerson, who's their master colorist there, is just a genius at restoration. He did a lot of great work. And he also, he gave me the opportunity to come in and do a scene by scene color supervised thing where I was able to put my 2 cents in. Because there was a lot of storm and drang over the Code Red release because people said we took the blue out. And the DVD aficionados out there, if you follow that, were all upset that we took out that wonderful heavy-duty blue. Well, it really turned out that Anchor Bay is where they got that from, and Anchor Bay overdid the blue a little bit from what Jimmy Lemo, the DP, wanted to do. Which, by the way, if you saw Miss 45 tonight, he shot that too. And that's how we found him. We saw Miss 45, and that was one of the ways we got together with him. He's a great DP. And so, it is, the new Vinegar Syndrome version of it looks like we shot it yesterday. It even has, and I didn't even notice it on here today, I didn't even notice the scratches. Were there the vertical scratches over Galen's face in a couple places? Okay, those were hard to get out. You'd have to rotoscope those out. And so we just left them in there. It's part of the original, and we said that's the way it is. But it looks phenomenal, and it's just got packed with extras. 2 full commentaries, one by us back in the day, another one by The Hysteria Continues, and new interviews. We had a great time doing that stuff.
By the way, they got some movie coming on with some fucking fish in it.
Ah, the fish. Yeah, right. That's Bruce, right? Bruce, the fish.
The fish.
He's now called Caitlin.
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
I know. Okay.
So,
he's old.
Yeah, all right. One last question, then we'll get off the stage here.
Yeah.
I'm looking for 2 things. I've been wanting to make a game. So if there's any game designers in the room, come and see me later, but it's a special game. It's not a game to be played on a computer in the house. It's a game to be played on cell phones, and it's like live. You play it live using GPS contact. Somebody's Madman, and somebody else, all the other people are not, and it's set up with some kind of a hit range, and if you get close enough, you get a hit, or you get hit. So I'm looking for somebody who's got that expertise who may want to play that with me and put that together. And the other thing I'm looking for is a storyboard artist who wants to possibly work on doing some stuff that I have in mind for the new one, and also to possibly do a graphic novel on what we have. So if you're here and you want to see me later, come and see me. Otherwise, I think we should let you guys get ready to do Jaws, right?
Yep.
Thank you, everyone, again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming.
Lore of the campfire, telling of his horror, lost in the woods with the madman and the stars. Don't laugh at the tales, heed if you call him the